Hello, everybody. Today we are talking our best moves for artist networking. Welcome to Art Prof. We are a global art party. Kat, you've got a networking move that is coming right up.
This is my networking move, but I didn't realize it was a networking move at first because it's just a tradition that I do normally. So I usually like to send a holiday greeting every year, and I send this to all friends, all families. And then I started making these cards that just feature a little bit of my artwork, of course, and then I give them not just to family and friends, but also former colleagues and former professors. Like that was just a tradition I did. But then slowly I realized that what I was actually doing was keeping up with this person, even someone I don't talk to every day. I can at least touch base with once a year at the end of the year.
And nobody can argue with a holiday card. It's not weird or awkward. It's just like, hey, happy holidays. But it's true. You need to pop up into people's lives because we're all busy. And it's very easy to lose track of people. There are a lot of people, they're not on social media. And so my only way to contact them is through, oh my God, a phone call or email or something else because I found that every person in my life has a particular means with which I communicate with
Mm,
them. And that's only gotten more complicated. And snail mail is like, yes, that is guaranteed.
totally. But also, if you're not able to make tons of snail mail, or maybe the cost of mailing or shipping is also daunting for you, even sending an email in the holiday season shows that you're thinking about that person and you're just wishing them holiday cheer.
Tell us in the comments who is a contact you have made as an artist, and how did you make that contact? Because sometimes it's the most random thing that you do not anticipate at all. For example, I'm often really surprised that a contact you have who you think, oh, they can't really help me, even though they're an artist or something like that, sometimes they can. Because I've been try and make contacts in the New York City gallery world. And so I assume, oh, I'm not going to bother with the auction people. I'm not going to sell a painting for $20 million. Like, I would have to bother with the auction people. But the thing is, the auction people, they know the museum people and they also know the gallerists. And so even if somebody is at an auction house and they can't give me a gallery show, I could say to them, hey, could I pick your brain about you? And can you make some recommendations? And that's something I think it just goes over our head. That never occurred to me until a couple of years ago.
I also think the same way. I mean, one example, a very real example that happened to me is I have my literary agent because of my furniture designer friend. And furniture design and the publishing world that I was trying to break into has little to no overlap. But my furniture design friend, and we'll talk about this in the next point of how you can network efficiently, but my furniture designer friend just cares about me. And I was just sharing a life update with her. I was saying, I'm querying agents right now. And she's like, cool. All right. Have a nice life. And we just like log off from our call. But later on, she was on this artist residency where she met the husband of a literary agent and then connected me with her. She wasn't open to queries, but she connected me to two other literary agents. So because of my furniture designer friend, I got to talk to three literary agents. Just I could have never anticipated that.
The degrees of separation are so true. And I am just floored that something can just totally come out of the woodwork. Now, those of you who are trying to network in order to achieve some kind of goal, let us know. And what are some of the things that are difficult? Because I remember as a young artist feeling so lost about how to get started because it really feels like somebody has just shut the door and nobody's going to open it for you. And you're like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to contact any of these people? Well, one thing that I think is very important, don't try to network with someone who you don't genuinely like. And I made this mistake. As a young artist, I looked at artists who were doing really well. And I thought, oh, I should comment on their social media so I could foster some kind of relationship, get in with them, and blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't do it. It was difficult to comment on people whose work I wasn't that genuinely excited about. And so you sort of think, oh, but doesn't that cut down on so many people I can network with? But I don't want to network with somebody who's unpleasant to be around.
I totally agree. I think that the term network makes people anxious and act different. They think, oh, this is for business purposes and I have an ulterior motive. The secret is the best networking isn't networking. It's just trying to talk to people you enjoy being around. It's trying to find friendships at the end of the day, trying to find your community and people who care about you and will look out for you. So I just have a problem with the word networking sometimes because it kind of shields the actual way to do it well, which is be a pleasant person and try to find the people you connect with the best, the people who will care about you the best.
When you think about it, it's actually not that complicated because you always think, oh, what do I ask them? What do I say? And usually once your mind starts going to those places, it's already very forced. For example, some contacts that I made recently were very easy because I had talked to them enough that they said to me, send me your stuff. I didn't have to say, can I send you my stuff? Which never feels good. It feels a little bit aggressive. And so if you get to know the person well enough, it just organically comes up in conversation. Because as an artist, I don't want to go up to a gallerist and say, I want to show you my work. That also sounds really desperate. And so you just learn to talk and it just comes up that you're working on a new series. And it's really not as difficult as I think people make it out to be. However, I do think the intimidation factor is extremely high, even if you understand that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that?
I think at the end of the day, I just try to put myself in that person's shoes. And let's just say I'm a literary agent, for instance, and I go to an event and all these people like swarm me saying, can you represent me? Can you represent me? Represent me, look at my stuff. I would get annoyed. I would say, but what about me? Don't you care about me as a person? And of course, like a literary agent is looking to seek out talent, trying to find great people that they are passionate about and want to represent good work. But at the end of the day, I think also literary agent is thinking, I want to represent a good person. And a good person would also care that I am a good person too. So it's not so much about your goal. Your goal is always there. We all have goals. But it's sort of having a bigger open mind and being curious about multiple aspects of a person and just wanting to get to know someone, not wanting to get something from them.
Because you can tell in a heartbeat, we get so many people. Can you critique my portfolio? Can you review this? I'm like, what, you guys think I just sit around and do this all day for free? And so the second I hear that ask, totally out of the blue, no prior contact, I'm like, forget it. I'm not going to reply to this. Or I'll say, well, I don't do critiques here, but I do them in art club, something like that. But it's not a very good way to have that be your first interaction. So great point here from Ginger, who says the best kind of networking happens by accident. Yeah, the only problem is you can't just like sit there and like wait around for your furniture designer friend to happen to know a literary agent. But they wouldn't have done that, Kat, if you hadn't talked to them about your work. And so that's another thing, is people have to actually know what you're up to.
That's true. And I think just putting yourself out there and letting people know your availability is very different from desperately going to someone and saying, I only want you to do this thing for me. It's a very different motive.
Counselor Chip says you aren't real if you can't be authentic. People sense inauthenticity. Absolutely. I've had people come up to me and just give me their business card immediately. And I'm like, we haven't even said anything and you're giving me your business. Like, I always remember that. I had somebody do that to me last year at a conference, and I instantly put it in a cycle. I'm sorry, but it was such a big turnoff, the way he just like pushed his business card on me, which I didn't like at all. So Tali says, what would be the best word to use instead of network?
I think honestly, a social circle. They don't have to be your best friend in the world. They could just be an acquaintance, someone that you are curious about their studio work or their general professional practice, or perhaps their cat, right? But at the end of the day, that's the next point. You read my mind, Clara. At the end of the day, it is a network and it is networking, but I think it's just the term itself really makes people anxious. It really gets people to act not like themselves.
Because, you know something, I have gotten people to follow me because I commented on a post of their dog. It works every time. Like, people love their pets to death. If people want to talk to me about Buddy, I'm like, did you know the other day he was eating grass? Like, I just always want to talk about him no matter what. And you too, you've got 2 cats. And
Oh, totally.
I don't think a conversation about Jessie and Mia is a turn off to anybody.
Oh yeah, like why wouldn't anyone want to talk about my cats? That's a great way to get me to not stop talking. I would just go on and on about them.
But also, it's just easy conversation, because if I talk about Buddy, I don't have to think too hard. He was being such a dope last night. He just was like on the couch, and that's easy to talk about. And food too. I mean, I know this sounds really silly, but I follow all these people in the New York City art world, and a lot of them are always going to these parties and things. I'm like, wow, going to parties is like a full-time job. But this one woman had posted that she was at this dumpling place that I went to in Taiwan. And I was like, I've been there. Oh my gosh, their vegetable ones are the best. And it's so easy to connect over that. So sometimes, a lot of the time, you're not even talking about the work. Anna says, no, networking has to be strategic. It's not enough to hope it happens by osmosis or something. Yes. Okay. So, Kat, we can get lucky, but we can't wait around for that, which is why cold calling, it really works. Most of the time it doesn't, but it's like that one time it does. It's like, score.
It does. I know multiple people who keep spreadsheets of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of art directors' contacts and editors' contacts that they just semi-regularly send an email once in a while. Not too many times. You don't want to get straight into spam, but maybe once a year or twice a year, they would send a cold call email out to every single art director on that list of hundreds and hundreds of people.
I've gotten so many jobs from cold calling, and you usually have no faith that it's actually going to work. But the second it works one time, you go, wow, this is magical. And there is no harm in cold calling. People will tell me, I don't want to do it. That's so embarrassing. If I got rejected, I'm like, it is so no skin off your back. People who are hiring, they're not paying that much attention to you. So unless you're horrible in the email or something, it's really not something to be afraid of. By the way, everybody, we have something very special coming up. We're going to announce it next week. but it has something to do with Art Basel Miami. And I am going there, and events are absolutely major networking events. And we are planning something really cool for you guys that we will let you know more about next week. And if you want to make sure you don't miss out, you're going to want to subscribe to our newsletter. And that link is in the video description below. So we have a comment here from Renting. I once went to a photo conference. There is definitely an essence of networking, but I looked at it more as befriending other artists and professors. Have you been to a conference before?
Not a conference, but definitely I think a similar group gathering like that would definitely be a reception. Just a bunch of people coming together when a gallery opens featuring an artist or multiple artists. There tends to be a lot of industry professionals mulling around. But I totally agree. I mean, again, networking is the term for this, but at the same time, it's also just about talking to other people. I agree with Anna in saying that networking has to be strategic to a certain sense. Like, yes, you need to attend a conference, and yes, you need to attend a reception. You need to be in the places where you can be seen and you can talk to the people you want to talk to. But beyond that, it's sort of just sensing another person's interests, them as a person, and seeing if you have some kind of common ground.
I feel like conferences are a little bit easier because you know everyone's there to network. You don't go to a conference and not want to do any networking because you just put everybody in one place, and it's amazing. Like I went to Art Basel. I'm going to go to Art Basel Miami, but I went to the Armory show in New York City, and it was amazing. There are galleries there from London. Like, when would I ever get to talk to a gallerist in London except for these big events? And Art Basel is even bigger than the Armory, and it's like just everybody heads down there, and within just 4 days or so, you can talk to a lot of people. And it's also nice because conferences, you are certain you have some kind of common interest. If you go to the printmaking conference, chances are you're a printmaker. It's not typical that non-printmakers go to that conference. And for me, at least, I find those conversations easier because if I can talk to them about, you didn't wipe your cheesecloths last time you were in the print shop, it's just a lot easier.
I think conferences are also great, just as you said. There is that precedent that people are there specifically to network. So that might actually make it easier for some people to go and do that there.
And we also have some cat paralysis from Art from Alexander. And Ginger says, I have found just trying to get involved in the art community where you live helps a lot. You get to know a lot of cool people and make new friends, maybe opportunities. How many people here have gotten involved somehow in some local art thing where you live? Because it is such a great experience, because it's just the convenience of it is awesome. And also, you never know when a local contact knows somebody in Minneapolis. It's just like there's no such thing as a bad introduction to somebody in your field unless they're a horrible person. Hopefully that never happens. Because you're in Providence. You're surrounded by artists.
Yeah, one thing I really love about this city particularly is that there's so many little art things going on. I couldn't have said the same thing about the previous city I lived in.
Alexander says, gotta find the events before you can join them. Small town art networking is basically non-existent. It depends on where you live. I do think sometimes you're kind of stuck with the local community, because I've joined local groups long time ago, and I was like, you guys are not my crowd. Like, I could just tell within 5 minutes of the meeting, this is not my people. And that's also been the same thing here in Utah, where I have done some things and it's just not the right fit. So sometimes that's a little hard, that it's not easy to find people who are like, yes, we really are on the same page.
Every group has its own dynamic, and every dynamic does not please the whole world. So honestly, you might just have to shop around a little bit to find different communities and see, again, how much you have in common with them.
I'm a little bit biased, but Art Club is a pretty awesome community for artists, and it's the quickest way to make art friends. A lot of people talk to me about how hard it is to find art friends and how to reach out to people. And I'm like, dude, you don't have to do any outreach in Art Club because we already have the community there. You don't have to do any of that. And it's so easy for us to connect you to other artists. That is something that I do a lot in Art Club. If I see somebody who's really into crosshatching, I'll try to introduce you to somebody else who's also into crosshatching. And so a comment we get a lot is people will say, oh my gosh, there's so many people here that overlap so much in terms of their interests. And that's what creates community. It's not just, oh, you guys learn from me. Like, that's not a community. That's just teaching. But that's what I'm very proud of. And you guys are all in there too in Art Club. It's not just me.
I want to also point out that you could find a lot of overlap by surprise. You might think that you're joining art club to get better at painting, but then you realize you have intaglio engraving as an interest in common with someone else. Something that surprised me about art club is connecting with one of the art club members. I'm not going to name names, but there's one who's a metalsmither, or I guess kind of like a beginner or hobbyist metalsmither like myself. I think I am at a similar level. I was so surprised to find someone just like that. And we could totally just nerd out about how to solder or silver together, what would be the best structure, etc.
Counselor Chip says, I joined a local art guild in order to collaborate and to feed my art endeavors, but I guess it's a networking event each month. There are several guilds I could join too. Yeah, it's so nice when the getting together is not in your hands. Art Club is there all the time. Whenever I get up in the morning, there's always so many notifications. And it's so nice to know, oh, I don't have to actually do something to interact with this community. I just have to show up. And there's always people in there posting. So while you can absolutely reach out to people you know, there is something to be said about a community that's already well established. Anna's asking, how do you be assertive or advocate for yourself without being annoying or nudging? It is such a hard line to toe. Well, tell us in the comments what you guys think works. What works for you, Kat?
Again, I try to put myself in the shoes of the other person. I think it would be really annoying if I were speaking and then somebody else trying to network kept trying to interrupt me or changing the direction of the conversation that I want to try to speak about. But at the same time, if someone you're trying to network with is taking the conversation in a way that you really disagree with, then maybe that's not the right person to network. If you feel like you have to be if you have to feel activated in a really negative way in order to interact with someone else, that shouldn't be the person you network with. The person you network with would also treat you with respect and ask you things and want to listen to you as well. It is an exchange. It should not be a one-way street.
I just never ask them for things. That's the main thing. You don't want people to feel put upon, because actually this is a little embarrassing, but I sent somebody a DM who I had talked to a little bit, not a huge amount. And the last message I sent was a question about a material, and they didn't reply. And I was like, maybe that wasn't such a good move, because what I should have done is just got talking about the thing. But it's like the second you're sort of demanding or asking for something, even something as simple as just a question, I think that's where sometimes people think you're entitled, like you're entitled to get that answer from them just because they're there. So my way to do it, you just keep talking to them, because the more conversation you log with that person, the more comfortable you get together. And it takes some time. I have some people I've connected with. In the beginning, it was just like 3-word responses over DM. But I'm like, okay, that's still a thing. I had somebody else, we got into like a full out conversation. It was like really involved. And now we feel okay just like starting a DM. Like, I don't feel like I'm approaching this person anymore. It's just like, hey, we hung out once. Let's keep talking.
I will say you will mess up by
Yeah.
trying to network, by trying to get connected with other people. You will mess up all the time. But you know what? You are human. And being human is to mess up. I remember all these times when I messed up networking too. I met an artist, I shoved my business card in his face. I sent in, somebody gave me her email. I'm like, yes, an email. And I immediately sent like a slew of questions and she never responded. Like, I remember all these things. And you know what? You learn from them. You learn by doing. And the world has so many people you can network with. You're not going to bungle your chances just because you messed up once.
And I'm not even telling you guys about all the really awkward moments. Like, oh my gosh. I'm talking about the things that worked well, but there's been a lot of times where I'm like, oh, why did I say that? I'm an idiot. And that will absolutely happen when I go to Miami. I am absolutely confident I'm going to be really cringy in some situations. But it's like the other option is not show up, which I don't want to do as well. We have a comment from Renting Spam. I just moved to Minneapolis. I feel like I've had a harder time finding that community here. I had an easier time in Eugene, Oregon. Oh yeah, some communities are just, for one reason or another, they're just not very set up for something like that. Kat, I think you're lucky because you're near RISD, which is just all the people that come to that campus. You're just plugged right in.
Right, I agree. I think it's also just it's university central. There are like what, 4 or 5 universities within this one city. And what I like about it is that there are just so many people of different educational disciplines. You're going to meet a mathematician, you're going to meet an economist, and you're also going to meet a painter. It's pretty fun.
Well, here Tolly says, fear because I don't think anyone would be interested in the topics that I care about. So what do you do with that, Kat?
I mean, fear is such a slippery slope. There's fear embedded in literally everything you do. To be perceived is also having the fear of being perceived. It's really a brave move to try to put yourself out there and try to project your voice and proclaim what you're interested in, especially in a community where you feel new and not necessarily welcomed. But at the end of the day, you just have to try. And also, the world is so large. There's got to be someone who's interested in the topics that you care about. There has to be. It's impossible for there not to be. And it could be perhaps down the block at your local library, or it could be in the city over, or it could be in art club.
And sometimes it's not even artists. For example, my former professor, Andrew Raftery, he did that beautiful set of plates on gardening. So all the images are gardening. And he's a serious, I mean, this is probably the only thing that he does as much as his artwork. And I thought it was fantastic that he was doing lectures for gardening clubs. You would think, oh, artists, oh, I have to go give an artist talk. I have to talk to the artists. And I was like, okay, who's going to be more excited about these than gardeners? Because it's all about the story of, okay, reading seed catalogs and setting this thing up. And I just thought that was so smart. So I had another student who was doing lots of drawings of birds. And I said, listen, you should contact the Audubon Society. Everybody loves birds there. Like, that is absolutely your fan base. So sometimes it's not artists, but I also think try not to start with the super specific thing. So for example, I'm doing these drawings of postpartum stomachs. I don't know that I want to go seek out people about postpartum stomachs because it might be too specific. But I can talk to people about just having children and the experience of birth. There's a lot of people who have done that. And I feel like if you just try to target things too specifically, then it feels like, oh God, there's nobody to talk to. So keeping it a little broader is better. And we also have Ginger, who says, I feel like I really downplay my work. I need to practice talking about my work too.
That is a skill that you need to develop as an artist, which is how do you present your work? And presenting doesn't just mean framing it nicely and hanging it straight on the wall. Presenting also is how do you talk about your work? How can you advocate for yourself? I think one thing that could help you is just try to boil down your practice, whether it's your material or your color palette or some kind of research topic that you're interested in, and say it in 1 or 2 sentences. And those can be the phrases you can always go back to when you're at a reception, when you're at a conference, etc.
I also think people think they have to give a lecture. But you know something? The only time I've ever had to do anything of that depth is when I'm giving a lecture. Most of the time when I talk to people about my work, it's like a sentence or two at a time. I don't get into it. I mean, unless somebody's really curious, but that's not very common. So I really like what Counselor Chip says up here, 30-second pitch. You usually don't have much time to talk to people. Like I go to openings, you don't really sit down and talk to people. You just sort of say hi, maybe mention something, and then you move on. And so I think the only time when you really have to think that deeply about your work is if you're writing an artist statement. Other than that, it doesn't matter so much.
I think it also depends on the time and place as well. So again, a lecture should be for a lecture. But if you're, I actually had something happen recently where I was at a craft fair and I felt hostage to the artist who was talking about their work. I'm like, oh, I don't think I can, it would be so disrespectful for me to walk away, but I also really want to walk away right now. And it was just someone who like went on forever. It was a lecture, and not once did they say, also, I like what I do. It was always just like an intellectual reason for this, that, and this and that. And I'm like, I'm at the craft fair. I really want to see some crafts right now. And then I went to another booth and somebody did a book on birds. And she said, yeah, I really got into bird watching this year and I made this book. And I thought that was appropriate for the craft fair.
Courtney says the local art store has been a great way to meet other artists. Yeah, there's some art stores like Hiromi Paper in California. They do a lot of workshops, and I saw all their offerings and I was like, I want to do a workshop. And so sometimes there are stores that have local events like that, which are really nice. And Alexander says, sad, I love questions. I love talking about art, its materials, motivation, really anything about art. I suspect most of us here feel the same way. I think it's not so much that you can't ever ask people questions. It's just that you have to get a certain degree of solidity in the relationship before it doesn't feel like you're just trying to take things from them, where it really feels like, okay, we're both benefiting from this conversation. Because Kat, you and I talk about this stuff all the time, but we've known each other long enough that it's not like you're some leechy student who's bothering me, which I've had, where I'm just like, guys, take a hint, okay? Like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah. I think you would get a sense of it when the conversation feels energized and everyone's on board and it's a back and forth. It's like you're playing tennis. And everybody loves questions, of course. But I think it's different going up to someone you don't know and immediately just having this deluge of questions hitting their face versus you talked a little bit, clearly they want to talk. And so at that point, yeah, sure, ask more questions because they want to tell you stuff.
Well, the other thing that I've also done is once I've made contact with somebody over a DM, I try not to DM them very often. I try to spread it out because certainly you would never want to do it every day. I feel like even once a week is sort of pushing it with somebody you don't know that well. And you have to have a lot of exchanges. And I'm sort of at the point with some of these contacts where once I've reached out to them, I have to have some signal that they've reached out to me. So it's not just constantly me going to them. So I always check for very particular people. Like I see, oh, are they liking my posts? Are they looking at my stories? And so those are like signals to me that they are coming to me, because I think it's just, as Anna says up here, I think you said something about, here it is. I worry sometimes about giving off an air of desperation, like people can smell it on me. My social anxiety gets pretty intense with in-person events. I suspect a lot of events are really unpleasant for a lot of people. I hate parties. Do you?
Depends on the party and who is attending.
I think you're more tolerant than I am.
Yeah, sometimes bringing my partner helps.
Yeah, as far as that whiff of desperation, I think it's just about like really spreading things out. So there's a lot of breathing room in between. And if you don't get any signals of them coming to you at all, and it's always you going to them, that's probably a sign that you need to back off a little bit. Because
yeah,
a lot of people say to me, okay, well, I need to make a portfolio to show at a gallery. Yes, you do. And then I'll start doing stuff. I'm like, dude, I've been doing this for like 9 months and I'm just starting to get a few pieces that might go, but I haven't really like locked in on a contact where I'm like, yes, we're BFFs. It just takes a really long time. And I know that patience is very trying.
Yeah, it's not going, a lot of contacts are not going to just be a fireworks of of connection and energy. Sometimes it's a very slow, like almost, I don't know why I think of it this way, but I just imagine kind of a big rock wall and I have a pickaxe and just slowly hack at it once in a while. Sometimes that's just the process of things. That's the process of making connections. And that can also be the process of making studio art even.
Olivia says, are there conversational tips for networking? I feel awkward when I join an already established group. Well, first of all, I never go to an event by myself when I'm going to an opening in New York City. And actually, it's more for me. It's not so much that I'm like embarrassed to go somewhere by myself. I think it's just, I just feel a little better. Like, imagine going to a wedding that's like 5 hours and you don't know anybody. Like, that is my personal hell, thinking about doing something like this. But this is a magic bullet that always works.
Ask the person about themselves. It's so easy when you go to an event with artists and you want to get to know them, just say, what is your studio practice like? What kind of things are you working on right now? Or what are some things you've done before? What is your art like? And that was actually a trick I learned by going to a reception and overhearing someone else ask that of someone else. And I was like, oh, that's such a good question. I'm going to take it. I'm going to immediately take that.
Basically, anytime you ask somebody about themselves, they will talk. I don't know anybody who would say, I'm not going to tell you anything. Like, Kat, if you asked me to talk about how my work is going, I'd be like, oh yes, well, I squeezed in 1 hour yesterday and I'm very stressed out because I have this grant and maybe I shouldn't have started those 2 pieces. It's like no end of things I could talk about. And honestly, sometimes you can just sit there and listen. It's like enough. Like you really don't have to talk that much if you let other people talk about themselves.
Right. It depends on the person too. Like for instance, if you know someone who is a literary agent, maybe you can just say, well, what is something that you've read recently that you really connected with? But here's the other clue. You need to ask the person about themselves, but eventually they need to ask about you. And if I don't get that response back, I tend not to continue the conversation because they're only interested in talking about themselves and they're not interested in me. I'm not networking at this point. I'm just a rock that they're talking at this point.
So actually, Anna is bringing up DMing on Instagram. And yes, it is so tricky and it's absolutely about restraint. So here's the other thing. So a couple of you guys are talking about how hard it is to read the room. I think that's everybody. We all are so different in terms of how we interpret social cues. But one thing that I found to be very important, which I talk about a lot, I have this video that I'm dropping on Sunday. And if you want to get it, subscribe to my newsletter. Link is in the description because this video, Secrets to Networking, it's not going to show up on our channel. You can only get it if you subscribe to the newsletter. But one of the things that I talk about in great detail is about how to handle DMs. Because you know something, I did DM with somebody who I was like, oh my God, so deaf. I was like freaking out because this person DM'd me, right? And I was like, what do I say? What do I do? And so I like called one of my friends who's worked with museum and galleries. I'm like, oh my God, this person wrote me this. What do I say? And she's like, okay, Clara, you do this, this, and this. And I was like, really? And she's like, oh yeah, they all do Instagram DM. I'm like, they don't do email? She's like, no, it's like, I've seen $10 million deals drop in an Instagram DM. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't know any of these things. And so if she hadn't told me that, I think I would have been weirded out by how casual it was, despite this person being fairly high up on the food chain. So what's nice about a DM, when it's not in person, you can go to your friend and freak out and say, what do I say? Like, have you done that, Kat?
I do that to you, Clara.
You
I
do?
get a message. Yeah. And I immediately text you. I'm like, oh my God, what do I say? And I just freak out. But luckily, there's some cushion time between when you read that DM and when you need to reply.
Well, so this one particular DM, I was like texting my friend furiously. I'm like, when do I mention this? Oh, is that too soon? Blah, blah, blah. And so we had this whole like, I swear it was like this corporate strategy for like what to talk to with this person when. And she was like, oh, no, don't ask him this. You need to say, can I pick your brain? Like she had a whole script like written out for me for how to go about talking to this person. So while networking may feel like this thing that, oh, I'm all alone, I can't do anything, it's not true. You really can help people. And speaking of that, the first stop for a lot of people, if you don't know what to do, is art club. I think a lot of people get into situations like that. It's really tricky. It's so helpful to talk to people in the field who have done this before about your particular situation, because of course, right now we're giving lots of advice, but it's very specific to what you and I experience. And ultimately, when people ask me about this stuff in art club, I'll say, okay, well, what's the organization? Who are you talking to? What are you trying to do? And that's where you really get impactful results, because that generic conversation, it doesn't go very far. Speaking of networking, I'm about to go down to Art Basel, Miami, which is going to be serious networking for me. That's entirely the reason I'm going. And guess what? We have something very special planned for you guys while I'm down there in Miami. So if you don't want to miss out on that, you're going to want to subscribe to our newsletter because you'll be the first to know what is going on with that special Art Basel Miami event. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.